On New Year's Day, 1598, the most powerful family in Brandenburg saw a woman in white, walking through the halls of the palace. 8 days later, the elector was dead. She came back for 300 years, before the death of one Hohenzollern after another. And in 1628, she did something she had never done before, and would never do again. She spoke 3 words of Latin. Veni, judica vivos et mortuos. Come, judge the living and the dead. A young prince of the house died days later.
4,000 miles away, in the rivers of central Mexico, a different woman in white was already weeping. They called her La Llorona. And the story everyone knows about her, that she drowned her own children, is not where she began. It was something that was done to her, and it is 500 years old.
And in the entire Arabic-speaking world, across every manuscript, every oral tradition, from the Maghreb to the Khyber Pass, she does not appear at all. That absence is not a gap in the record, it is the most important clue we have.
3 women in white, 3 continents, 3 completely different sets of rules for surviving her.
And one question we could not stop asking. Why does the same ghost need 3 different instruction manuals?
One detail in what follows is a deliberate lie. We planted. It is small, it is specific, and it is checkable. Find it before we name it.
To understand what she really is, you have to start before you can see her. She's already crying before you hear her. That is the first thing.
Not the dress, not the water, the crying comes first. It always comes first.
She has 3 names.
In the halls of Brandenburg, they called her die Weiße Frau, the white woman. She appeared in palace corridors before members of the Hohenzollern family died. She wore something over her face. No one who recorded the sightings agreed on what.
In the rivers of central Mexico, they called her La Llorona, the weeping one. She walked the water's edge at night, calling for her children. Mothers told children not to answer. Children mostly listened.
In the Near East, she has no agreed name at all. She is not a figure you see. She is a presence you carry. She is the sound that comes from inside the room, not outside it.
3 continents, 3 languages, 3 entirely different sets of rules.
That is what caught our attention, not the creature, the rulebooks. Because if this is folklore, the human mind, pattern matching, shadows and grief into something with a shape, then the rules should be loose, general. Don't go near the water, don't walk alone, don't look.
That's not what we have. We have specific rules, contradictory rules, rules so precise in each tradition that they suggest the people writing them were trying very hard to make sense of something they had watched happen and to make sure someone else could survive it.
We went looking for a coincidence, a shared archetype. We found something else. Farewell for now. We'll meet you on the other side of the corridor. In the Germanic tradition, the legend as it was collected in the great 19th century sources, the Weiße Frau arrives before a death, not after. She does not cause it, she announces it. The rules are not about escape. They are about recognition. You will know her by the clothes at her face. You do not run. You do not speak. You witness. And you grieve what is coming. These are the rules of a creature you cannot fight. A tradition that has accepted loss and built ceremony around it.
In the Mesoamerican tradition, Hode's oldest layer survives in Nahuatl accounts compiled in the decades after the Spanish conquest. The rules are entirely different. La Llorona comes for children. The rules are: do not let children near the water at night. Do not let them answer a voice they do not recognize. If you hear a close, pray. These are the rules of a creature you might outrun, a tradition actively trying to prevent the deaths. One tradition is grieving, one tradition is warning.
Same creature, same white dress. Same incomprehensible weeping that starts before you can see her and stops only when it's too late. Different instructions, because they may be describing different phases of the same disaster.
Let me take you somewhere. Mid-16th century, a village near Tenochtitlan around 1540. You are a midwife. You move between houses where women are delivering children quickly, because there are many and you are a few. You do not know about Streptococcus pyogenes. No one does. Germ theory is 300 years away. Here is what you know. 2 weeks ago, a woman in the third house past the river died after a child came. Pale, feverish, she cried out continuously in the last days, anguished, searching, the sound a person makes when an infection reaches the brain and they are no longer entirely in the room with you. Last week, another, same district, same symptoms, same whiteness, same crying. Yesterday, a third. You are watching a cluster. You do not have the word cluster. You do not have the word vector. You have a weeping white figure moving through your community, touching new mothers and leaving them pale and gone. You have given her a name. The smell reaches you before she does, iron, and the specific sweetness underneath it. The smell of lochia, of postpartum discharge, turned infected. A smell you have learned to fear, because it means you are already too late. Then the crying. And note what kind. The folklore gets this detail right, even when it cannot possibly know why. It is not grief, it is searching, urgent, repetitive. The sound of high fever walking on a mind that is still half functional. A woman in late-stage septic delirium calling for a child she may or may not have delivered. The folklore says she calls for her children. Our reading is simpler and worse. She was a dying woman, delirious, calling. And the pallor, not theatrical, clinical, a circulatory system pulling blood away from the skin, trying to save the core. The white dress is the skin, the dress is the feather. The dress is the state of dying while still upright, still moving. And the face.
The Germanic tradition covers it. Says we cannot see what is underneath.
The Mesoamerican tradition says she has no face at all, or a skull, or a face wrong in ways the witnesses could not agree on.
I think she had a face. I think the traditions cannot agree because the witnesses were looking at the woman they knew. A neighbor, alive the week before, now moving toward the water with the unfocused purpose of someone dying and not yet aware of it. I think they obscured a face because the truth was worse than a monster. The truth was a mother.
Let me tell you the story you already know. La Llorona, the story goes, was an indigenous woman who loved a Spanish nobleman. He abandoned her. In her grief, she drowned her own children in the river. Now she wanders, weeping, condemned to search for them forever. This is the story told to every child near a river in Mexico, the story in the encyclopedias. But the infanticide, the mother as a killer, is not where she starts. The oldest surviving layer, recorded in the Florentine Codex, describes Teocotal and the Teoteteo, the patron of midwives, and the spirits of women who died in childbirth. A weeping woman in white, walking the night, named as an omen of catastrophe. A figure of maternal death, the danger of the mother dying, not the mother killing. The child killer comes later. She's built over the colonial centuries by a patriarchal Catholic culture that absorbed the indigenous goddesses and reshaped them, took figures of fertility and grief and recast them as dangerous, destructive, guilty. That much The scholarship does support. The serpent woman who protected mothers becomes, in the colonial retelling, a woman who destroys her own. Think about what that inversion does. A spirit born from women dying in childbirth from the most vulnerable moment in a woman's life. It's slowly rewritten until she's the one holding the knife. The victims become the monster, the grief becomes guilt. She was not a child killer. She was a record of mothers dying, turned over time into a mother who kills. And the worst part is the part underneath. The part that was real before anyone retold anything. The cluster deaths were real. Real women dying after childbirth in a world with no germ theory and no defense. The weeping white figure was already there. In the fever wards, in the birthing houses and the delirium. The retelling didn't invent her. It just changed what she was weeping for.
I have to be honest with you about something, because if I let it stand, it would be the lie I didn't plant. La Llorona is a disease. We can say that with a straight face. The cluster deaths, the fever, the delirium calling for a child. The medicine and the myth line up almost too well. The Weiße Frau is not that. She does not come from new mothers. She comes from a ruling house. She appears in palace corridors before the deaths of electors and princes. People who died of age, of stroke, of the ordinary diseases of power. There is no childbirth cluster in a Hohenzollern hallway. There is no midwife. So, what is she? She is the same grief wearing a different cause. A dynasty needs its death to mean something. A family that the universe warns in advance is a family the universe considers important. The White Woman of Brandenburg is not a record of an epidemic. She is a record of power insisting that its losses matter more than other people's. Same dress, same silence, same figure at the edge of the room before someone dies. But where La Llorona is biology, the Weiße Frau is legitimacy. One is a fever, the other is a crown, telling itself a story about its own importance. 3 women in white, and I will not pretend they are the same illness. They are the same shape. The female figure who stands at the threshold of death the living could not stop, pressed out of 3 completely different pressures. Disease in one, power in another, and in the third, nothing at all.
She isn't here. I looked. Every account, every manuscript from the Maghreb to the Khyber Pass, Persian court poetry, Ottoman folklore registers, Bedouin stories transcribed by colonial ethnographers in the 1880s. No white lady walking the roads, not one. And that should feel like a relief. It doesn't. Because the Arabic Islamic tradition doesn't give its dangerous women a road to hunt. It gives them a location inside. There is a whole family of these figures. Al-Qarinah, al-Sibyan, female spirit, blamed for the death that happened in private, miscarriage, the child that doesn't wake, the fever that takes the new mother. She doesn't stand at the crossroads waiting for a stranger. She is already inside the stranger's house. The white lady exists where women were permitted to be publicly dangerous. She walks roads, she is seen, her power is special. The Qarinah has no roots, no geography. She exists entirely in private space, in bedrooms, in the bodies of women who miscarry, in the cradle that goes quiet in the night. The absence of the white lady in the Arab world is not a gap in the mythology. It is the mythology. Every culture builds its monsters out of what it fears most. Europe feared the woman who wandered. The Middle East feared the danger that was already in the room and could not be locked out because it had never been outside. The white lady stands outside and knocks. The Al-Qarinah doesn't knock. She was never outside.
In the Germanic accounts, those who saw her describe a period of stillness afterward, an inability to re-enter ordinary time. Minutes reported as hours, hours as minutes, a dissociation from sequence.
In Mesoamerican accounts, survivors describe an auditory persistence. They continue to hear the searching cry for days. Not hallucination, residue, the sound had inscribed itself somewhere sleep could not reach.
In the Arabic accounts, the visited do not describe an encounter at all. They describe heaviness they cannot locate, not a memory of seeing, a memory of being known. She doesn't leave evidence of herself in the room. She leaves it in you.
And in all three, the witnesses age faster. Not metaphorically, observers noted that those who had seen her closely looked older within weeks, gaunt, grey where they had not been.
Grief does that.
Terror does that.
Watching a woman you know die, in a specific way, puerperal sepsis kills, does that.
Some legends are warnings, carved into the stone of courts that needed this story for the deaths they could not explain.
Some are records that got rewritten, a grief turned into a guilt over centuries by people who needed the dead to mean something else.
And some are the shape of an absence. The myth that's not there is still a myth. The silence tells you exactly what was not permitted to be said out loud.
And some are medical records, written by people who had no other language for what they were watching.
This one is all four.
I checked the corridor last night.
I checked the water's edge.
I checked inside.
We sure it was fine?
Probably.
Before you go, we told you at the very start that one detail in this episode is a lie. We planted it. We meant it. And now we pay it off. Because that is the deal. So, did you find it?
Most of you went looking in the big places, the colonial rewriting, the biology, the absence. You assumed the lie would be important. A period twist about power or disease or history. It wasn't. That's the lesson.
Go back to the very beginning, to the cold open. We told you that in 1628 the white woman of the Hohenzollern spoke for the first and the only time in her recorded history, and he told you she spoke 3 words of Latin. Then he said them, Veni judica vivos et mortus. Count them.
5. Veni 1. Judica 2. Vivos 3. Et 4. Mortuos 5. I said 3. There are 5. The sighting is real. The legend is faithfully told. The Latin is exactly as it comes down to us. Only the number was a lie. Small, specific, sitting in plain sight in the first 90 seconds, while you waited for something bigger. And that is the point.
It will not always be the colonial twist. It will not always be the disease. Sometimes the lie is a date, a name, a number you could have checked on your own fingers.
So next time, and there is a next time, don't just listen for the big reveal. Count the small things too.
The archive is open. Find it before we name it.
Season 2, coming soon.